Savitar should not exist, and I can prove it. If you're like, dude, John, what are you talking about? They literally explained how Savitar exists in the CW Flash show. Yes, they did, but they actually didn't because their explanation makes no sense. The way they described it is like a chicken and the egg scenario, but if you really think about it and dive deep into it, doesn't make sense. And I, again, will prove it to you, but I can't do it here, so I gotta do it somewhere else. All right, so now I'm actually in a location where I can best describe how Savitar should not exist. So instead of me just describing how the Flash says Savitar should exist, I'm just gonna show you guys the clip.
4 years from now, future Flash creates a time remnant to fight Savitar. But Savitar lets that remnant live so that it can later become Savitar. So once Savitar's imprisoned in the Speed Force, this remnant starts to go crazy. And he goes back in time to the past and becomes Savitar.
Creating the lie that he was the first speedster. Spreading the myth and recruiting acolytes throughout the ages.
That doesn't make any sense. Which came first, Savitar or Time Remnant?
It's a closed loop. No beginning, no end. It's just one endless cycle.
Classic chicken and the egg scenario, I think, eh?
And at face value, it makes sense. But when you look further into it, you realize that what the show is saying happened isn't actually what happened in the show. Now you finally get my explanation, all right? So this is the timeline, right? This is the timeline, okay? And there's 3 points we're gonna have to take note of, right? This is the point right here where Barry learns of Savitar's existence, when he first meets Savitar, all right? This is the point where Wally frees Savitar from the timeline, okay? And then this is the point where future Barry traps Savitar, okay? All right, so right here, Barry learns of Savitar. He does the whole thing with Julian. You know, they talk, they learn about Iris, all that stuff. And right here, as I said, Savitar tricks Barry into releasing him from the Speed Force prison, okay? So then Savitar does his thing, and then right here's where he kills Iris. This is the timeline where Iris is dead. I know Iris doesn't die in the show, but this is the timeline where Iris is dead, okay? So then he kills Iris, and then he keeps on going, and then eventually future Barry traps him in the Speed Force. And because the Speed Force is weird, and it's like time bullshit and all that stuff, this Savitar that was trapped in the Speed Force by Barry is the same Savitar that we meet from the beginning. Now you're gonna say, John, that's a closed loop. That's exactly how the show describes it. Yes, but there's one tiny little flaw in this closed loop theory. If Savitar's whole shtick was that he gets brought back to kill Iris, and that's the only reason he exists, because then he gets trapped in the future and then he comes back and his life is literally just a life cycle, it makes sense. However though, we're revealed in the episode called Cause and Effect that Savitar is actually a time remnant of Barry. And the episode Cause and Effect is my favorite episode in the entire Flash series. It's fantastic. And me saying this and explaining why it doesn't exist isn't me dogging on the Savitar reveal or the episodes, because I love them. I do love season 3. But it's revealed that right here, after Iris dies, the Flash from the future creates time remnants to stop Savitar, but he kills all except for one. And then this time remnant eventually lives and starts to go crazy. Issue I have with the show, I feel like Team Flash wouldn't have ignored this version of Barry, even though he's a time remnant, especially because the Flash was being like mopey and shit at the time, but you know, whatever. So anyways, this time remnant of Barry, he's living, and then he goes crazy, and then he goes back in time to create the myths about Savitar. Again, as we can see here, the whole issue is, how does time remnant Barry get into the loop? Because he can't. He cannot get into the loop. Now you could say, well, John, maybe after he kills Barry's mom, you know, this version of Savitar, after making the myths, takes the place of this Savitar. And then this Savitar then is the one to go up here and then enter the loop. And if you were going to say that, well, fair enough. But then where was this version of Savitar? You know, then one version of Savitar is just running the timeline doing whatever the fuck he wants. If Savitar is a time remnant of Barry Allen, there is no way for him to exist because the loop is closed and he cannot enter the loop as a time remnant. Again, I just don't understand how the time remnant could become Savitar when this version of Savitar was trapped in the timeline by future Barry, but then he kills Iris, and then he's trapped again. So if the time remnant takes his place before he's trapped, then where the fuck is this Savitar? This Savitar, this one, if the time remnant takes his place, is running around doing whatever. I don't know. It doesn't work. In fact, the entire Flash timeline is a mess. I think I figured out a way to solve it. If you guys want to watch that video, let me know. But I think I figured out how to make the entirety of the Flash timeline work and make sense without it falling apart, mostly. So if you guys want to see that video, please let me know. But yeah, Savitar shouldn't exist. I don't even know how any of this stuff works.